So, so that's what I'd like to say. So now, one of our main speakers for the evening, Chris Brown. So, as I'd already mentioned, I worked with Chris at the Department for Transport, but he had an illustrious career before joining the Department for Transport. He worked at BP, the National Physics Laboratory, and where I came to meet him at D&T, and I was quite surprised when I went to his retirement to just across the road from here, when I said, what are you going to do? You know, you're going to be relaxing, doing a bit of travelling, although probably not the best plan at the moment. And he said, I'm going to write this book, you know, rather than putting his slippers up. And if you haven't already read it or purchased it, I really do recommend you do. A Ticket to Zion. It's an interesting book, and I know people would say, you know, sort of like, you know, when you say interesting, what does that really mean? And it kind of reminded me of lots of different things in life, but I think it really is a book of joy in lots of ways, quite inspirational. It's part adventure, part meaning of life, I think, and at times downright bonkers, I think. And I think the reason why I say bonkers is because I had a lot of chuckling throughout the book, because it really does reflect on the madness and the idiosyncrasies in the railway. So I'm hoping now that Chris is going to tell us a bit more about the book and about Ian and the adventures, the main character in the book.
Yes. Thank you very much, Joanna. Yes. So I'm going to say just a few words about how I came to write a book. It started actually, I was a commuter up to DFT from Walton-on-Thames, where I lived, for a number of years. And what I decided to do was read a book on the way to work, as lots of people do. And this is the book I picked up. It's John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress, which is actually the best-selling novel ever in the world. It's sold over 200 million copies. So it comes with a good recommendation. And I decided to read it in the original Old English, because it was written in 1662 or something. So it's quite hard going. So you can either have it read it in the modern English or the Old English. But it was really inspirational. So I was reading that on the way to work. And then one day, I thought, I could write a similar book like that, about a journey through life on the railways. John Bunyan's book was written before the railways were invented, so his journey was by foot. So my journey was going to be, for my character, Ian, by train. So I've been inspired, the way I came to write it was little incidents in the railway industry that sparked off an idea, which then had an allegory with journey through life, you know, our life generally. So one example of that would be disabled passengers not always having the provision of getting where they wanted to go very well, and getting frustrated about that. There's a chapter in the book about that. Then there's another example which I'd like to draw your attention to. Yes. So the way I wrote it was tiny little scraps of paper. I noted down all these things from when I was inspired to write something. And then just before, about a year or so before I retired, I turned it into a rough draft of a book. And when I was at the retirement do, which many of you were at, and here's the actual original card that you provided for me at the time, so you can have a look at that as well afterwards. And some of you actually signed up to order a copy of the book at the retirement do, which is in 2016. However, it took rather more than the year that I thought it would take for it actually to come out. So if any of you are thinking of writing a book, you will have to plan quite a long time to actually finish it, I would recommend. But I persevered, and in 2020, beginning of 2020, I got a publication deal from the publisher, and here it is. So it's now been published. It was published earlier this year. Thank you very much, Jim. So a number of people have contributed to that in terms of proofreading. Phil over there at the door is one of the proofreaders and helped very much with that. And if you mentioned it to quite a number of people, the fact that I've written a book about this. I even mentioned it to the Queen, would you believe, when I met her at Buckingham Palace, and I was invited there for the garden party. So there's been quite a bit of exposure there. So, what is the book about? Well, it's an allegorical novel, that's the genre, and it's a bit like Narnia books, if you know the C.S. Lewis Narnia books. And it's really, I would say, it's a journey through life by train. That's what I would call it. So it starts in Wales, South Wales, where I went on holiday once, and then it starts with the excitement of seeing the first train, the first steam train, and then getting the free ticket to travel on this journey, where he didn't know where he was going. He just decided to take the ticket, and off he went. And the book explores, it's not just an adventure, it explores some of the big questions in life. For example, what's the purpose of suffering? Why do we have to endure so much in life? And why do people see things so differently? So that's part of what I tried to do. Originally it was 52 chapters, but I've now cut it down a bit, so it's a bit shorter than originally. So that was partly to make it affordable. So it's now only 177 pages and 33 chapters, and I managed to keep the cost down to just £10, which was make it a bit more affordable. So just to finish with, I'd like to read just a couple of extracts from the book, which illustrate what I've just been saying. So first of all, the point about, well, why do so many people in the world see things so differently? Because we're all in the same world, we've all got the same brains, roughly. Why do we have such different opinions on things? So I'll just read one paragraph about that, which is in the chapter called "What Do You See?" Ian mused that through the same window, over the same few minutes, his three fellow travellers had seen three completely different things. One had seen the universe expanding, another, a field of daffodils, and the third, a level crossing near mist. Was it the glasses they had chosen to wear that had filtered the information coming through the window in a different way? Was it their education that had taught them what information to focus on and what to ignore? Was it their culture, their personality, their motivation, or just chance? So here I'm sort of exploring a little bit through the allegory of a railway journey and seeing things, why we have the opinions we do have. And then the second and the last excerpt is inspired from a journey I made to Switzerland, which I repeated again this year, to Grindelwald, and a train station called Grund, which is quite interesting. And what happens there is everybody piles into the train at Grindelwald, and then gets into one side, which they think is the best side for the views of the mountains.